Here's the unwritten pact that Leafs Nation made with Leafs management a few years ago. The fan base would forego its fixation on fast-tracking a half-century in the title wilderness, and absorb all that pain. Coach Mike Babcock forecast, if there is reason to believe, within a season or two of finishing last overall, promising strides were made. The perceived impediments such as Phil Kessel, Dion, Phaneuf and Jonathan Bernier were long gone, and one by one, the nameplates of Auston Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Frederik Andersen and John Tavares went up. No one expected to raise the Titanic without getting wet, so most put a positive spin on two playoff losses. Last spring's followed a franchise record 49 wins and 105 points. This season, when 20 wins in the first 28 games gave way to the grind of the NHL schedule and some injuries, the criticism was mostly muted. However, what the paying public has endured since Christmas isn't supposed to feature in this stage of the Shanaplan. 5 losses in 7 games, those 2 wins versus non-playoff teams, were rife with alarming signals the Leafs are going soft. So why wouldn't the constituents be up in arms and strong in voice? Frustrations boiled over Monday night, a final 40 minutes against the Colorado Avalanche with little or no compete in key battles against a one-line team that wanted the 2 points more than the home team. Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender Frederik Andersen, 31, on Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. On Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Toronto Maple Leafs center John Tavares, 91, on Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Toronto Maple Leafs defenseman Morgan Rielly, 44, on Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Colorado Avalanche right-wing Mikko Rantanen, 96, scores. On Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Colorado Avalanche center Carl Soderberg, 34, gets a hat trick. 6-3 win for the Colorado Avalanche against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Monday, January 14, 2019. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun. Toronto Maple Leafs right-wing Mitchell Marner, 16, scores in the third period on Monday, January 14, 2019. The Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun. Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender Frederik Andersen, 31, on Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun. Toronto Maple Leafs center John Tavares, 91, and Colorado Avalanche center Nathan MacKinnon, 29, on Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun. Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender Frederik Andersen, 31, on Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun. Toronto Maple Leafs left wing Zach Hyman, 11, on Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun-Post Media Network. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun. Toronto Maple Leafs right-wing Connor Brown, 28, and Colorado Avalanche defenseman Nikita Zadorov, 16, on Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun, Post Media Network. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun. Colorado Avalanche center Carl Soderberg, 34, on Monday, January 14, 2019, the Toronto Maple Leafs host the Colorado Avalanche in Toronto. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun, Post Media Network. Veronica Henry, Toronto Sun. NHL clubs are supposed to start showing playoff preparedness in the second half, yet a Leafs lineup that relies on speed and creativity more than muscle has shown little of either of late. Almost 6 weeks after he signed for $41.4 million US, Nylander has 1 goal. The silent Swede was dropped to a line with 2 other slumping forwards, Nazem Kadri, 2 assists in 10 games, and Patrick Marleau, 2 goals in 14 games. Matthews has 1 goal in his past 10, and though he's put some assists on the board, it's his shooting and scoring hammer that sets him apart, yet he's not been driving the net effectively. Marner has produced 5-on-5, but it's his role with the malfunctioning man advantage unit that's under fire, a group expected to dominate when Tavares arrived. Matthews was taken off the first power play group last week to try to pump life into the second. Those Leafs who predated Babcock, namely Kadri and Jake Gardiner, have regressed at back end of public scrutiny. Game-changing gaffes such as Gardiner's in Monday's 6-3 loss to Colorado are overshadowing his offense. Since Monday's booing, Babcock only had to open the bench door at the start of the year to get positive results, but now it's time to push some buttons. His vision of the Leafs matching up against heavy teams lacks many willing and able participants at the moment. It might take busting someone of note down to the fourth line, where a few Leafs have done hard time, or even more drastic lineup decisions if things don't change. But when looking at some of the coach's most troubled projects, at least Nylander was more engaged on Monday, twice in prime scoring position and winning 5 of his 9 face-offs. As a team, however, much more is required. Not mentally sharp, not physically engaged enough, either, Babcock said of the collective effort against the AVs. We only got ourselves to blame. Myself as the head coach, I'm responsible. We didn't play well enough. We didn't play hard enough. As for getting himself and this team out of this funk, it will take a lot more than avoiding the office on Tuesday's pre-scheduled day off. A back-to-back that starts Thursday against league-leading Tampa Bay doesn't bode well, and it's far from guaranteed win night at home against Arizona this Sunday before heading into the long All-Star bye-week break with a test against the defending Cup champion Capitals. February, with its trade deadline on the 25th, must yield better results. Boo birds circling Gardiner. Bad news for Jake Gardiner. Attracting boo birds in this town is they're hard to get rid of. Ask Larry Murphy or Daniel Alfredson. The good news is a panic-driven trade by management is unlikely to disrupt himself or his young family, unless there's a veteran NHL defenseman coming back to the Leafs. And there'll be a chance for either playoff redemption or green free agent pastures if he can keep his offense up when he reaches UFA status in July. He'd like to stay in his 8-year home, but cap constraints with younger players and a market for blue liners, owns own warts and all, will likely see him change addresses. That said, the only time in Monday's difficult scrum about the booing, when his stoic veneer cracked, was when he was told how teammates had extolled his value and off-ice leadership in their formative Leafs years. Those are the guys you play for, Gardiner said. Hornby at postmedia.com.